Stop. Before you book that resort. Before you type Jamaica All-Inclusive Deals 2026 into a search bar. Before you pack a single thing. Watch this first. Because Jamaica welcomed over 4.3 million visitors in 2025, a new record. And a significant number of them came home talking about something no brochure mentioned, no travel influencer covered, and no resort app explained. Not danger. Not disappointment. Something stranger than both. This video is the briefing the travel industry will never give you. We're counting down 10 things nobody tells you about visiting Jamaica in 2026, with updated research, real traveler stories, and information that will either change your itinerary, change your expectations, or change something you didn't expect to bring home in your luggage. We start at number 10. And by number 1, I promise you, this will feel like a completely different conversation than the one we started. Before we continue, if you are just watching my video, don't forget to hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. With that said, let's get back to the video. Let's go. Number 10, the resort bubble is a trap. And I want to say this directly, because the travel industry has billions of reasons not to. The all-inclusive resort model is quietly stealing your Jamaica experience. And the resorts are counting, financially, operationally, architecturally counting, on you not noticing until you're already home. Tom is a 44-year-old financial analyst from Chicago. Smart guy. Researches everything. He booked a 5-star all-inclusive in Montego Bay, the kind where the pictures look like a screensaver and the price tag suggests a complete, self-contained paradise. By day 6, Tom realized something uncomfortable. He had spent more time navigating the hotel's app, booking dinner reservations, scheduling excursions, scrolling the activity calendar, than he had actually interacting with Jamaica. He'd been in Jamaica for 6 days and had barely been in Jamaica. Here's the data behind Tom's feeling. The Jamaica Tourism Board's 2025 analytics report found that 78% of visitors never meaningfully leave their resort zone during their stay. Not for a day. Not for an afternoon. The resort revenue grew 14% year-over-year while local, community-based tourism grew by just 2%. The math of that gap is not accidental. The all-inclusive model was engineered, deliberately and intelligently, to maximize revenue per guest inside the property. Every meal you eat at the resort, every cocktail, every authentic Jamaican experience package sold at the concierge desk, that's money that stays within the resort ecosystem, not the local economy. That's not a moral accusation. It's a business model. But it means the resort's incentives and your experience as a traveler are quietly in conflict. The fix is simpler than you think. Book just 2 nights, outside the resort corridor. 1-day trip to a non-curated location without a guide who works for the hotel. That's the minimum viable dose. Travelers who do this consistently report that it restructures their understanding of the entire trip. Tom figured this out on day 6. He had 1 day left. He used it. We'll come back to him. But escaping the bubble. It immediately exposes you to something nobody puts on the resort map. Number 9, the parish divide nobody maps. Jamaica has 14 parishes. 14 distinct regions, each with its own personality, landscape, culture, food culture, and rhythm. Most tourists visit approximately 1.5 of them. According to Visit Jamaica's 2025 analytics, over 65% of all tourist activity is concentrated in just 2 parishes, St. James, that's Montego Bay, and St. Anne, which is Ocho Rios. The remaining 12 parishes receive a combined 35% of tourism traffic. Some of them receive almost none. Yuki is 31 years old. She's a travel photographer from Osaka, Japan. She was supposed to take a bus from Montego Bay to Ocho Rios. She took the wrong bus. She ended up in St. Elizabeth. She called it the greatest accident of her traveling life. St. Elizabeth is Jamaica's breadbasket. The southern parish is unlike anything the resort brochures show, dramatic savanna landscapes that genuinely look more East African than Caribbean. The Black River, where you can take a quiet boat safari and see crocodiles in their actual habitat. YS Falls, a series of tiered natural waterfalls that Yuki described as more beautiful than anything she'd seen in her original itinerary, and virtually no tourist crowds. She spent 3 days there. She missed Ocho Rios completely. Then there's Portland Parish in the northeast. This is the green Jamaica, the wet, lush, barely developed eastern end of the island where Frenchman's Cove drops into water so clear it looks computer-generated. The Blue Lagoon. Fishing villages that have operated on roughly the same rhythms for a century. The travelers who accidentally or deliberately find these places consistently say the same thing: they felt like they discovered something. Not an undiscovered place, locals live there, people have always lived there, but undiscovered by the tourism machine. Which makes it feel, paradoxically, like the real thing. You don't need to take the wrong bus. You just need to open a map that goes beyond the 2 most marketed parishes. But speaking of things hidden in plain sight, number 8 involves something millions of tourists literally walk past every day without having any idea what they're looking at. Number 8, the political street art is speaking to you. Jamaica's walls talk. Murals, symbols, colors, flags, names, the visual landscape of Jamaican streets, particularly in Kingston and Montego Bay, carries 60 years of political history embedded in it. And most tourists see it as decoration. It is not decoration. Here's the context that matters. Jamaica has operated under a deeply entrenched 2-party political system since independence in 1962. The Jamaica Labour Party, orange, and the People's National Party, yellow and green, have divided not just the ballot but the physical geography of working-class communities. Garrison communities, as they're known, are neighborhoods with deeply embedded political affiliations that historically translated into real territorial dynamics. Research from the University of the West Indies Department of Government in 2024 documents how this political geographic culture shaped urban Jamaica for decades, and while the intensity of garrison politics has evolved, the visual markers remain. Derek is 29, from Manchester in the UK. He's the kind of traveler who wanders. He was walking through a neighborhood he found on Google Maps. It looked vibrant, colorful, photogenic, when he walked into what he initially thought was a community block party. Music, flags, people celebrating. It was a political victory rally. Derek was fine. Completely fine. He wasn't in danger. But a local woman in her 50s gently took him by the arm, walked him 2 blocks back toward a main road, and explained, with absolute kindness, what he'd walked into and why wandering in without context wasn't the best move. He said it was the most educational 5-minute conversation of the entire trip. The practical guidance here is not fear, it is awareness. Before you wander, ask someone at your accommodation, which areas do I approach with context? Not, where is dangerous? That's the wrong question. The right question is, where should I understand something before I arrive? There is a difference between fear and preparation. Preparation is just respect. And the woman who walked Derek to safety? She perfectly embodied something about Jamaican social culture that number 7 tries to explain, and that most tourists violate before their first full day is over. Number 7, the unwritten social code. And this one is so simple that its simplicity is shocking. There is an unwritten social contract in Jamaica. It is deeply embedded in daily life. It is non-negotiable in many social contexts. And tourists violate it constantly, not out of rudeness, but out of complete unawareness. Here it is: you greet people. Not with a notification. Not with a nod. With words. Time-specific words. Good morning. Good afternoon. Good night. Delivered clearly, with eye contact, to the people around you, the vendor you're about to approach, the person standing beside you at a crosswalk, the driver, the shop owner, the stranger on the path. This sounds small. It is not small. Amanda is 38. She's an HR director from Toronto, a city where making eye contact on public transit is considered mildly aggressive and talking to strangers is, at minimum, eccentric. She arrived in Jamaica carrying her urban social armor, headphones in, eyes down, efficient, transactional. On day 2, at a craft market in Ocho Rios, a vendor, older woman, patient, clearly experienced with tourists, stopped Amanda mid-transaction and said, warmly but completely directly, "We say good morning here." Not unkindly. Not as a complaint. As information. Amanda said that sentence restructured something in her. A 2024 Caribbean Tourism Organization survey found that 34% of Jamaican hospitality workers cited cultural misunderstanding as their most common daily challenge with international visitors. And the core of that misunderstanding, again and again, comes back to this: tourists from certain cultures treat public space as anonymous. In Jamaica, public space is communal. There are no strangers, only people you haven't greeted yet. Once Amanda understood this, she said the whole island unlocked. People invited her into conversations. Vendors became hosts. A market trip that was supposed to take 20 minutes turned into 2 hours of stories, food samples, and a standing invitation to come back. One phrase. Good morning. That's the entry code. But even tourists who master the greeting quickly get ambushed by number 6, because nothing in their preparation could have prepared their taste buds for what came next. Number 6, the food is not what you think it is. You think you know Jamaican food. You've had jerk chicken. Maybe at a Caribbean restaurant back home. Maybe at the airport. Maybe at the resort's authentic beach barbecue night, where someone in branded clothing smiled while explaining the significance of allspice. You do not know Jamaican food. Let me paint you a picture. It's 7:30 in the morning. You're in May Pen, a real Jamaican town, not a tourist corridor. You walk into a cook shop the size of a living room. A woman named Miss Gloria has been cooking since 4 a.m. On the stove, cow foot soup, its broth thick and golden and complex with Scotch bonnet and thyme and something deeply, ancestrally restorative. On the counter, ackee and saltfish, Jamaica's national dish, the ackee still warm, the saltfish shredded just enough to distribute through it, served with boiled green banana and fried dumpling. The dumpling is crisp outside and somehow soft inside, and you eat 3 of them before you've even sat down. Carlos is a 45-year-old food writer from Sao Paulo, Brazil. He flies specifically to eat. He flew to Jamaica specifically to eat. He spent his first 2 days disappointed. Resort food. Nice. Fine. Not what he came for. Day 3, he asked his taxi driver, not the concierge, the taxi driver, where he personally ate. The driver took him to Miss Gloria's in May Pen without a word of explanation. Carlos described her cow foot soup as, and I'm reading his travel piece here, the most structurally complex bowl of food I've encountered in 20 years of writing about flavor. A 2025 report by the Caribbean Culinary Institute found that only 12% of resort menus feature more than 3 genuinely authentic Jamaican dishes. The rest, roughly 88%, is what the industry calls Caribbean-inspired, internationalized, softened, made recognizable to tourists from places that have never tasted Scotch bonnet at full strength. The real food is out there. It's not hidden. It's just not curated for you. The compass, ask locals where they eat. Not the concierge. Not the hotel app. The taxi driver. The woman at the craft market. The man who fixed your air conditioning. Where do you eat? Follow the answer. But even Miss Gloria's extraordinary kitchen sits against an economic backdrop that thoughtful tourists start to feel around day 3, something uncomfortable, something they can't quite name, something number 5 will finally give language to. Number 5, the economic tension tourists feel but can't name. There's a feeling that settles over thoughtful tourists in Jamaica, usually around day 3 or 4. It's not fear. It's not guilt exactly. It's more like, a cognitive dissonance that the resort experience was specifically designed to insulate you from. You're floating on a lilo in a pool with a swim-up bar. The sun is exactly the right temperature. Someone brings you a second rum punch without you asking. And 800 meters away, on the other side of the resort wall, is a zinc fence community where the average monthly income is less than the cost of the cocktail in your hand. That distance, 800 meters, sometimes less, is one of the most stark wealth contrasts you will encounter anywhere in the Caribbean. The World Bank's 2024 data places Jamaica's Gini coefficient, a measure of wealth inequality, at 0.408. To put that in context, that's higher than the United States, higher than most of Western Europe, sitting in the range of some of the most economically divided societies on Earth. Jamaica's GDP per capita was approximately $6,200 in 2024. A single night at a premium Montego Bay resort costs more than many Jamaican families earn in a month. Sarah is 33. She's a social worker from Amsterdam, a person professionally trained to notice structural inequality and sit with its weight. She arrived in Jamaica with genuinely good intentions, a generous spirit, and no framework for what she was about to see. Day 4, the hotel van drove her past a community she hadn't seen on the hotel website. She said, "I didn't know what to do with what I was seeing." Here's what tourism researchers call the constructive response to that feeling. It's called traveler's conscience, the recognition that where you spend your money inside a destination is itself a form of participation in that destination's economy. The Caribbean Development Bank's 2024 Tourism Impact Study found that every dollar spent directly with local Jamaican businesses, cook shops, craft producers, local guesthouses, Jamaican-owned tour guides, has a multiplier effect of 2.5 times versus the same dollar spent inside a foreign-owned resort. 2.5 times the local economic impact. From the same dollar. Just redirected. Sarah changed her itinerary completely from day 5 onward. Local guest house. Cook shop breakfasts. A tour guide named Fitzroy who'd grown up in Kingston and had opinions about everything. She said it was the best decision she made in Jamaica. And what she found when she stepped outside that resort gate, on the road toward the Blue Mountains, is exactly what number 4 is about. Number 4, the Blue Mountains are underrated to a criminal degree. And I genuinely cannot believe how consistently this place gets underrepresented in Jamaica travel content. The Blue Mountains. You may know them because of the coffee. Blue Mountain Coffee is one of the most sought-after specialty coffees on Earth, commanding up to $80 per 100 grams in global specialty markets, according to the Specialty Coffee Association's 2025 pricing report. It's grown in one of the most specific, protected, altitude-sensitive agricultural zones in the world. But the coffee is almost a footnote compared to the mountains themselves. The Blue Mountain Peak rises to 2,256 meters above sea level. That's higher than any point in the United Kingdom. Higher than most of what Europe calls a mountain. On clear mornings from the summit, and you have to be there before dawn to catch them, which means hiking in the dark, you can see the island of Cuba on the horizon. Think about that. Standing on a Caribbean island and seeing another country from the summit of a mountain most tourists flew over on their way to the pool. The biodiversity up there contains species found in no other ecosystem on Earth. Cloud forest. Endemic birds. Fog that rolls through the coffee trees at elevation and makes the whole landscape feel like a fever dream. James is 52. Retired geography teacher from Dublin. He has visited every Caribbean island over the last 15 years, systematic, thorough, the kind of traveler who keeps a spreadsheet. On his Jamaica trip, his resort had offered a Blue Mountains day tour. His wife wanted to do a catamaran party cruise instead. He almost said yes. He didn't. He described the pre-dawn summit hike as the single most humbling natural experience of my 15 years of Caribbean travel. Here's what tourists don't pack for: it's cold up there. Genuinely cold. At the peak in the early morning, temperatures dropped to around 10 degrees Celsius. Tourists who packed exclusively for beach weather stand at the summit shivering in their linen shirts, too happy to care. Practical guidance: book through a licensed guide service. Forres Park and Whitfield Hall Hostel are both established operators with good safety records. Bring one warm layer. Wear trail shoes, not flip-flops. Leave before midnight for a dawn summit if you're doing the full hike. Fewer than 8% of Jamaica tourists visit the Blue Mountains, according to Tourism Board data. 8%. If you're in the 92%, you've left something behind that can't be photographed adequately and will not leave you alone. But even standing at that summit, even in that cold, in that silence, tourists in 2026 are encountering a Jamaica that number 3 reveals, and that almost nobody is talking about in travel content. Number 3, Jamaica's digital transformation is invisible to tourists. And this one requires you to update your mental model of Jamaica entirely. While tourists are sipping rum punch and watching the sun go down over the Caribbean, which, to be absolutely clear, is a completely valid and wonderful thing to do, Jamaica is quietly, ambitiously, relentlessly modernizing in ways the tourism industry has no incentive to advertise. Because the tourism industry sold you paradise. And paradise, in the marketing imagination, doesn't have a fintech startup scene. But it does. Kingston's tech ecosystem, increasingly called Silicon Caribe by regional business press, now houses over 200 registered technology startups as of 2025. Jamaica's ICT sector grew by 11.3% in 2024, according to the Planning Institute of Jamaica. The country launched its National Digital Transformation Strategy in 2023 with concrete 2025 and 2026 targets: digital government services, national digital ID infrastructure, financial inclusion through mobile technology. The Jamaica that tourists see, reggae, rum, resort, repeat, is real. It's genuinely real. But it is a partial view of a country that is simultaneously ancient in its culture and urgently modern in its ambitions. For digital nomads, for African diaspora professionals, for entrepreneurs looking at Caribbean markets, the Jamaica of 2026 offers something the travel brochure has never mentioned. And all of that modern energy, that building ambition, exists in direct conversation with the cultural force that number 2 unpacks, something so foundational to Jamaican identity that once you understand it, you will never hear a reggae song the same way again. Number 2, reggae and dancehall are political documents. Every song you've half heard at a beach bar. Every rhythm coming through the wall of your hotel room at 11 p.m. Every sound system pumping bass into a street you were walking down. All of it is a political document. Not metaphorically. Not as an academic abstraction. Literally, Jamaican popular music, from the roots reggae of the 1960s and 70s through the dancehall that dominates contemporary culture, is one of the most sustained traditions of musical journalism and political testimony in the history of recorded sound. Bob Marley is not a t-shirt. He is a primary source. His catalog is a compressed history of post-colonial Caribbean identity, Rastafari philosophy, Cold War geopolitics, and economic inequality, delivered in melodies so beautiful that people sing along without registering what they're agreeing with. Dancehall, the genre that most contemporary Jamaican young people actually live inside, carries direct, current commentary on police violence, political corruption, generational poverty, gender dynamics, and the specific psychological experience of being young, talented, and Jamaican in 2026. It is news reporting in rhythm form. JAMPRO, Jamaica's trade and investment agency, reported in 2025 that Jamaica exports over $350 million annually in music and cultural intellectual property, more per capita than virtually any nation on earth. David is 48. He's a history professor from New Orleans who has taught Caribbean history for over 20 years. He visited Jamaica for the first time in 2025, somehow, inexplicably, he'd never been. He stood outside the Bob Marley Museum in Kingston on a Tuesday afternoon in June. He said he felt, for the first time in his academic career, like he had been reading the textbook and had just walked into the primary source. Here's the detail tourists miss about the sound system culture, the phenomenon of massive bass rigs set up in yards and on streets for parties, dances, and community events. This is not a Caribbean party trick. The sound system tradition in Jamaica is over 70 years old. It predates the internet by half a century. It predates social media algorithms by 60 years. It was how Jamaica broadcast to itself. Community news. Shared experience. Collective memory. The algorithm was the selector, the DJ, and the feed was the crowd's response. When you feel that bass in your chest at 6 a.m. and think, someone should turn that down, you're standing inside a 70-year-old communication infrastructure. Understanding that changes the experience from annoyance to awe. And all of it, the music, the mountains, the food, the code, the tech, the parishes, the political walls, all of it is upstream of number one. The thing nobody tells you. The thing you can't prepare for. The thing that turns a holiday into something you're going to be processing for the next 6 months. Number 1, Jamaica recalibrates your baseline for being alive. This one isn't practical. It won't fit in a packing list. You cannot schedule it in an itinerary. No concierge can book it for you. But it is the most reported, most consistent, most documentable thing that happens to a statistically significant portion of people who visit Jamaica in good faith and with open eyes. Jamaica recalibrates your baseline for what it feels like to be alive. In 2025, researchers from the University of the West Indies collaborated with Skyscanner Travel Research on a longitudinal study of traveler outcomes across Caribbean destinations. They were measuring what the study called transformative travel, trips that produced measurable, lasting changes in personal values. Here's what I think Jamaica does, and this is my read, not a study. Jamaica refuses to perform urgency. In a global economy that has monetized speed, productivity, busyness, and the performance of being overwhelmed, Jamaica operates on a different metabolic frequency. It is loud and physical and present. It is direct and warm and unhurried in the ways that actually matter. It confronts you with the cost of whatever you've been running at. The vendor pressure that exhausts you on day one is a human being demanding your full attention. The music at 6 a.m. that wakes you up is a community refusing to be invisible. The fisherman on the dock who asks about your family is asking the question you stopped answering honestly years ago. The things that disrupt you are the treatment. And most people don't realize that until they're home, 3 weeks later, slightly unable to slot back into the life they left, because some internal setting got quietly, permanently adjusted while they were looking at a harbor in Portland Parish. They came for the beach. They went home carrying something heavier. And lighter. At the same time. So here's what I need from you. Have you ever been to a place, Jamaica or anywhere in the world, that didn't just entertain you, but handed you back a version of yourself you'd forgotten? A place that recalibrated something without asking your permission? Tell us in the comments. For real. Because in past videos, the comments section on questions like this has produced stories more quietly devastating and more genuinely hopeful than anything our research team found. And if Jamaica is on your list for 2026, which of these 10 things genuinely changes how you'll show up? The resort bubble? The parishes you'll now actually visit? The food you'll actually seek out? Or are you the kind of traveler who needs a destination to shake you a little, before you finally start paying attention? Let us know. And if this video made you see Jamaica differently, even 1 degree differently, share it with someone who's got a trip planned. Because the briefing nobody gives you is always the one that matters most. If you enjoyed this video, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and drop your thoughts in the comment below. I'm bringing you fresh content every day that you won't want to miss. Turn on notification to be the first to know when the next video drops.